X-Men. You were the X-Men.
What's up, guys? Welcome back to House of Power, our X-Men live action and Deadpool in review. My name is Kyle. Thanks for checking out the channel, guys. We got our Wolverine hat here. We got our X-Men shirt, guys. Go check out the other Project Potter content. But, guys, we are here for movie number 5, X-Men First Class. I've never seen anything X-Men except for Logan, but I've only seen that once, guys. We'll get to that. And I can't wait to get to that because, man, it's been up and down so far. And this is the first modern movie or the first movie of the modern series. I don't know if it's a trilogy or what. This movie made me realize how much I missed the original cast and how much they nailed that original cast in the 2000 movies. Because, man, this one was a miss for me. I'm going to go into that, guys. If you haven't seen it before, what I do is go through my thoughts on the movie. I give a favorite character a score to 10, and then we're going to rank these movies, guys, rank this movie, excuse me, against the other 4. So, guys, appreciate you stopping by. Let's go. This movie, just very strange casting, in my opinion. I couldn't really connect with anybody. And let me be clear, guys. I love me some J Law. She'd be looking good in this movie. I love Rose Byrne. Rose Byrne is awesome, especially in things like Neighbors, but I think she's more of a comedy actress. I didn't really see her in more of a serious role. I felt like she kind of felt out of place here. I love James McAvoy. He's so good. And especially in things like, goodness, now I'm forgetting the superhero trilogy, Unbreakable, Split, was it? Unreal acting performance. Loved him in his Dark Materials, dude. I thought that was a really good show, and I thought he was excellent in that. But for some reason, there's just all the casting fell off for me. January Jones, love her. I was like, dude, is Don Draper going to show up? Is Don Draper going to be Magneto? Would have been cooler. Would have been cooler if he was. Michael Fassbender, I haven't seen him in a lot of stuff. I just didn't connect with his character, Eric. Now, again, me watching these back to back to back, the original cast is stuck in my head, right? We do get a Hugh Jackman cameo, which I thought was funny. Charles Xavier, young Charles, is going around getting all the mutants. He stops by a bar and Wolverine's in there, and he's like, get the hell away from me. And I don't know if he says I'll see you later or something, but they leave him alone for now. But we obviously know that they connect later. So that was fun. But this made me really realize man, how good Ian McKellen is as Magneto, because I just was not feeling Kevin Bacon. We're putting Kevin Bacon as the villain, and man, it's just I just feel like every bit of casting they missed. There's a lot of acting talent here. There's Fassbender, not really my cup of tea, but I can see how people love him as an actor. McAvoy's so talented that even though I wasn't really digging his Charles Xavier, his young Charles, I can see why he could grow into it. And this movie is a lot okay, these are kind of the first version of these characters. You're going to see them grow into something. They obviously changed Cyclops around where they have him do a metal, a chest thing instead of the eyes that James Marsden had. And that was a way cooler thing. This one is just a chest piece. I thought that was strange. Can we talk about Jennifer Lawrence's Mystique and how bad it looked and how the older movies looked so much better? And I think that was all CGI before, but I don't know if they went practical with the makeup effects, but Jennifer Lawrence just did not look good as Mystique in here. And she looked great as Jennifer Lawrence. She was hot. This was 2011 Jennifer Lawrence, just peak Jennifer Lawrence. But whenever she was as Mystique, I was like, oh, dude, and the original Mystique in the 2000s trilogy looked great. She looked super hot. Jennifer Lawrence's Mystique just looked bad, dude. And that's the problem, is that a lot of this movie was just kind of goofy or just didn't feel right. It felt off, or it was way too on the nose. And I don't know, man. I just I forgot about January Jones's character. Her effect was cool, but she was a telepath, and I'm like, there's too many telepaths in X-Men, dude. You got Charles Xavier, and he's great, but I hate how he's putting his hand up. And I know it's a young Charles, so he's still getting used to his powers and everything. But I hate how he's got to put his hand up every time he's got to use it, because in the later Charles we see, and obviously he gets more powerful, and now that he actually can't walk and he's in his wheelchair at the end, he's gonna grow his powers. I get it. But it's just something about that threw me off, man. And maybe I'm nitpicking, but again, it's having watched the original trilogy, it makes me realize that they really did nail the cast of that original trilogy. When you see the miss in casting, in my opinion, in this movie, it really sticks out. And it just it felt weird. Kevin Bacon just wasn't doing it for me. I mean, he just there's a line where I forget what it was, but he literally said it, and it sounded like he was so bored reading that line. I just couldn't believe it. And then there's like the nuclear reactor or something, and he absorbs it, and that was a cool effect when he's got like the multiple hands that come out, which is kind of confusing to me. But he absorbs the energy, very cool. But he absorbs this nuke, and then like nothing came of it. This movie starts off, and we double dipped with the Holocaust, and I was like, I don't know if we should be double dipping in the Holocaust. We kind of want to forget that that happened, and I know it's like an important part, and they this series is kind of about power and the quest for power, and now people get power hungry, and they turn to dictators, and that's what Magneto is, and it's like I get it. But at no point did I think, okay, and we open it up with young Eric, and that scene, which I thought was a good scene actually, and I think it's Kevin Bacon who's there. They're in Germany, I think, and then he says like, "I'm gonna count to three, and you move the coin, or I'm gonna shoot your mother." And he doesn't move the coin, so he shoots the mom, and then that's when Eric explodes, and he's like, "Oh, your gifts are unlocked with anger and pain." I'm like, "That's cool." But then Charles tells him later, like, there's a fine line between like serenity and rage, or serenity and pain, or whatever. I like all that stuff, but I never thought like Eric was power hungry. I never thought, oh, he's going to take over Kevin Bacon. He's going to become Magneto. The revenge scene at the end where he puts the coin through his head was very cool. I was like, okay, that was satisfying. When he lifts the submarine up from the water, very cool. But it's so weird to me. Like, there's just too many things that didn't add up. Beast transformation looked terrible. I mean, that looks so bad, dude. First, I had the glasses on him, and I was like, bro, that looks so stupid. That's the dorkiest Beast I've ever seen. And I know they don't want to do like a one for one, but like Kelsey Grammer's Beast it looked so good, it sounded so good, it was perfect, and he had a presence. This Beast was just a little dork. And I was like, okay. And then he loses the glasses in the basically the Quinjet, I'm gonna call it. But then he still didn't sound right, and like it just his face looked like kind of like a baby, and I was like, I don't know, it just the CGI was just terrible in this movie, I thought, and it took me out of it. And I wasn't super interested in the plot because it's kind of like, I guess Kevin Bacon is power hungry and he wants a nuclear war, but it wasn't like the original Magneto where he's like, humans and mutants are against each other. We got to stop them. We got to fight the cure. There is a cure. Well, we think there's a cure in this movie, but then it's just Beast fucking up and then injecting himself to fix his gross feet, and then he just becomes Beast. And I'm like, okay, so it's weird that they kind of mess with that. It felt like they were kind of squishing the original trilogy in here, but trying to make it their own thing, but also being like way too on the nose. I didn't even remember Rose Byrne was in the movie for a lot of it until like I don't know what her character is supposed to be until the end when she shoots Magneto and then he like deflects the bullet and then it hits McAvoy or Charles right in the back, and I'm like, ah, that's how he loses his legs. Okay, but I don't know, man. It's just him having hair. I know he's younger, but like I want to know like when did he get bald? Like, and I guess we'll get to that eventually, but there's just a lot of this movie I just wasn't vibing with, and I just couldn't get attached to any of these characters. And it was just the casting was just off on too many levels where it's like, okay, I love James McAvoy, but I'm not really feeling his Charles Xavier here, but he's young, so maybe he'll build into it. And then it's like, okay, you got January Jones. I thought she was pretty good, but like, why is she kind of in this movie? And she's a telepath and she can change, but then she's kind of like the butler to Kevin Bacon. But then Kevin Bacon is not a good like villain. I think he's just like a comedic. He's great, just like Rose Byrne, great in a comedic role, but not a good villain. And so he was distracting me from it. And then Fassbender, I'm just not a big fan of. I don't think, where I don't really love his style. Or I don't think he's like blowing me away. So he wasn't great, and I didn't really feel the connection between Eric and Xavier. And I felt like Charles was trying to be like, Eric, no, Eric, no. And he's like, sorry, buddy. But then he just kept like going against Charles's wishes, but I never felt that connection to them like I felt with Patrick Stewart and Ian McKellen, and so it just nothing, none of it really worked for me, and so I found myself kind of bored, and it felt like a long movie, and I was checking the time, and I thought some of the effects were really bad, and I just thought the story was lacking, and I don't think this is a very good movie, and you guys will see that with my score, but this one was a dud for me. Okay, guys, that brings us to our favorite character. For a favorite character, I guess I'm gonna have to go with McAvoy because I think he was the best of the group. But again, I wasn't completely vibing with him. Now maybe he'll grow into that role, and now he's going to be in the wheelchair next. Sure, he's going to shave his head bald. I think I've probably seen him as Charles Xavier with a bald head. So, well, I'm interested to see like how that looks. Maybe he'll just be like, oh, I want for a new look. It's just hard, man, because again, I'm trying to be like, all right, this is kind of like an origin story. This is young Charles. I mean, he goes to the mansion, but there's a weird dynamic between him and Mystique. And then it's also like, why did Mystique go join Magneto at the end? I guess because she was just like tired of Charles, but they were like kind of good friends, and then he lost interest in her, but she just kind of wanted to be viewed like feel sexy, and I don't know, dude. It was confusing, but James McAvoy, he's so good that even a quote unquote bad performance for him, I think he was still serviceable. But I think we'll probably see much better performances from him. I felt like he was kind of in the background a lot, and even when like Magneto put the helmet on and he's like, "Oh, I can't get in there," it's like we knew that was going to happen, but I feel like they were kind of leaning towards Fassbender at the end, but I wasn't connected to Fassbender. But I think we'll see better performances from McAvoy going forward. But I guess if I had to pick, he was the best of kind of a bad group, and so he is my favorite character for this movie. That brings us to the score. I'm gonna say this is a 6.2. I just couldn't really vibe with this movie, man. It's cohesive. It's put together, but I was just bored with it, man. I couldn't really ever get attached to it, and like I said, the only cool scenes that stick out to me are the submarine being lifted from the water, and then I guess Magneto holding the missiles at the end, but then he flips it on him, and I did like how Charles was telling him like Eric, like it's just they're just men following orders, and then he's like, I've been around men following orders, I'm never again. But it is kind of like, why did Magneto get so power hungry at the end? And I know that he like lost his mom and stuff, and he was a victim of people following orders, but and he's tired of dictators and stuff, and Kevin Bacon was just pushing him around a little bit, but it just felt weird for him to like flip and turn on that. So I don't know, man. Like I said, the effects were bad. I wasn't really connected with any of the characters. I didn't feel the dynamics. Like when you watch the original trilogy, you're like, oh, Wolverine and Jean Grey. That's kind of a weird thing, but the Hugh Jackman and whoever that actress is for Jean Grey. I'm sorry, I don't know. They still sold that chemistry, right? You felt the animosity between Scat and Wolverine in the original trilogy, right? Between Cyclops and Wolverine. So like that was palpable. Rogue and Wolverine, their connection was a little weird at first, but it was like a father-daughter sort of connection. Like these are good, and you felt the Patrick Stewart, the Ian McKellen, it just everything worked there. And again, watching this movie made me realize like, oh, these are actually I actually am longing for that original cast because they missed, I think, on so many different levels in casting for this movie. They had the Nightcrawler, although he was like reworked as Azrael or Azal or something, and he's a bad guy, but he like was just made to be like the devil. But they didn't introduce him really or like spend any time with him, so he's just a cookie cutter villain. I didn't mention, guys, that terrible scene where they're like, I don't know if they're in the mansion, but they're on like a campus where they're testing the powers out initially, and then they're like goofing around. But then like the mutants aren't even in a a, a bulletproof room. Like they're just kind of out in the open, and when Kevin Bacon goes to like find the mutants. Oh, I think he said his line delivery was like, "Where are the mutants?" Like he just says like, "Where are the mutants?" Like he's having a casual conversation with someone, and then they just like open fire on the glass. It shatters, and it was just so messy. Also, why did they have sexy mannequins they were practicing on? They didn't show like any titties in here, but like they had mannequin titties. And I was like, why are you getting like seductive mannequins over and over? And it's like, are you trying to be funny? It was just weird, dude. They should have had training dummies or something. I felt like they were trying to be clever there or funny, and it just was like creepy and weird. So this movie just a miss for me, dude. And I'm just I hope it gets better. All right, guys, that brings us to the rankings. So number one is still X-Men: The Last Stand at 9.4. Number two, the original X-Men at 8.1. Number three is going to be X2, X-Men United at 6.6. This one is going to slide in at the new number four. And then we're going to have number five is going to be X-Men Origins Wolverine at a 5.2. So not as bad as X-Men Origins Wolverine, but I just didn't have a good time with either of these last two films, and it felt like a slog. I hope it gets better, but again, retrospective is showing me how good this original trilogy was, and I was like, maybe I was a little too hard on the original trilogy, but also it's important to stick by your decisions, and that's why I watch these movies and review right after, because like everything is fresh and I don't have any future movie knowledge other than Logan, and I forget all of Logan pretty much to like influence these movies. So you're getting my genuine, honest reaction after them, and so I am interested. The X Men are way cooler than I give them credit for. I'm excited now for them to be in the MCU. I didn't care about the X Men at all before, and so we still have a lot of movies to go. But I am enjoying my time. Just these last two felt a little bit like we're like treading uphill, like going through mud instead of like the fun. Like Last Stand was genuinely fun, and then even the earlier movies 1 and 2, even though 2 isn't my favorite, it still had some fun moments. So either way, guys, we keep going through this series. All right, guys, that's it. That's another episode of House of Power. Thanks for checking out the channel, guys. Thanks for checking out this review. Let me know, do you guys like First Class? This is kind of the new movie of the modern trilogy. So I don't know where we're gonna go with it. Also, there was no Jean Grey in this movie. Now that I think about it, so I know that I think it's Sophie Turner plays Jean Grey in Dark Phoenix or whatever. So I've seen clips of here and there. Oh, also I didn't mention, guys. I almost forgot the meme. The meme scene is in this movie. I didn't. I was cracking up because as soon as Michael Fassbender was wearing the black turtleneck, went over, and I've seen this meme so many times where he's like, "No, I want the real blank." And he's like, I said the real blank, and then he's like perfection, and I'm like, I was cracking up because I was like, I've seen this meme so many times where it's like, I want the real Spider-Man, no, the real Spider-Man, or it's like the uglier version, or it's like Spooderman, and then it's like perfection. I was laughing so hard at that scene, so I didn't want to forget that. But either way, guys, we keep going. Appreciate you. Go check out the other content, and until next time, guys, perfection.